Hello, everyone. Welcome to Reiki Radio. This is Yolanda Williams. I am your host, and I am so happy to be here with you today. And before we get started, I do want to acknowledge the new listeners who have sent in emails letting me know that they are enjoying the shows and are new to the community. I want to express to you my gratitude. It really does make my heart shine to see the way that we are growing and to have so many new people tuning in and listening to the show. It really means the world to me, and I would have never imagined that Reiki Radio would have grown in the way that it has. So I'm so happy to have you here with us. And if you are new, just to give you a little background, I am an intuitive mentor and I'm a Reiki teacher. And I also offer online courses to help you strengthen your own intuition and to learn about your chakra energy. So if you want more information about me and the work I do, you can visit my website, which is yewchi.com. And that's YEWCHI.com. Now, today we are talking about meeting your guides. And this is one of those topics and, questions that I'm asked about all the time. People want to know who they are, what they do, and how to connect with their guides. So today I'm going to share with you what my experience has been, as well as some ways for you to meet and work with your own guides. Now, first, I do want to point out that we have guides in many forms. We seek guidance in many ways. Now, when we want to learn something new or we need support, we may find guidance from another person, a book, a radio show, and we also have these non-physical guides that show up to help us out. And that's what we're talking about today. The energetic guides or spirit guides that show up for us. Now, I will say we do have several of them around us at any given time. There's always energies present, and some people are more sensitive or more aware of these energies, while other people may not notice them as easily. But I do want you to know that even if you aren't aware of your guides or other energies yet, you can work on strengthening your intuition as well as learn how you personally sense or translate energy. You have the ability to do it, and we will go over that later on in the show. So for now, let's just talk about what these guides are. Now, just like we have a world full of different people, all of us with different lessons and stories, different agendas, there are these energetic beings who also have various reasons for being here. And they also have their own ways of serving the community as a whole. Now, they may have different assignments, or sometimes they just come in to give us messages. So you can think of them like people in a way, but just in non-physical form or in spirit form or energetic. And there are many types of non-physical beings. But today we're talking specifically about our guides. So in regards to them, we have guardians, which tend to be more of like a protective energy. We have teachers and messengers. And then, of course, some people choose to work with very specific groups, like the archangels or ascended masters. And then we all have our ancestors and loved ones who have crossed over. So I know that many people want to know if their guides are present and who their guides are. And like I said, there are energies around us all the time. And your guides come in to support you, either because you have called them into your space or they have been assigned to help you in some way. So think of it this way. When you want to know something or you start thinking about what you may need help with, it's like you're energetically broadcasting out a signal attracting back into your space whatever it is you've put out a call for. So if you think about something that you may have wanted or something you wanted to know more about, and then it's like you happen to meet someone who's able to help you, or you may come across a book. All of this is a way of this guidance or the universe or your guides working with you. And even if you work with your guides more directly, you may ask them questions directly. But it doesn't matter how you're asking for support. The point is that once you do ask, the support or guidance is going to show up for you in some form. And I wanted to point this out because many people don't know that their guides are working with them, or they may not have a desire to work with their guides at all. But either way, this is all energy. So whether you call in a guide by name or you choose to work with a specific group of energies like the archangels, you just send out a request for help. And someone or something will show up to assist or guide you in some way. Now, an example of this would be like, someone who may feel they want protective energy in their space, or they feel uncomfortable and they just want to feel a sense of being protected. If they are familiar with the archangels, they may call Archangel Michael into their space because he is associated with the energy of protection. But even if you're not familiar with a particular guide or entity or deity who's associated with whatever type of energy you want to connect with, you can still attract that specific energy into your space just through your intention. So keep that in mind as well. Now, as I mentioned before, there are some of us who are more aware of energy than others. And, we have psychics and people who are intuitive. Then there are mediums who usually work mainly with energies or people who have crossed over. But there are mediums who work with different types of energies as well. But in a broader sense, there are so many people who are empathic. And you may be an empath. And being an empath, just kind of in a nutshell, it means that you are very sensitive to energy. You have this heightened awareness of energy. And if you don't understand how to work with this or control it or maintain it, it's like you're this energetic sponge and you just take in and take on everything because you feel it so deeply. Now, this can be very distracting for a lot of people, especially if they don't know how to work with this type of gift. But what I want to point out is that regardless if it's an empath, a psychic, an intuitive, a medium, there are so many people who can give you more insight about the type of energy that's around you. And some of them can even tell you why certain guides have shown up in your space. And a lot of you may already be able to sense these energies, like I said, but maybe you just haven't learned how to translate what it is you're sensing. Now, what's interesting is that people tend to know or trust when they sense energy in their space and it's a loved one who has crossed over. And the reason is because that energy is familiar to you. If we were familiar with someone's energy and familiar with what they felt like, if that energy comes back into our space, we're going to recognize it. Now, before I even started doing this work, I was already very sensitive to energy because I am an empath. But before I learned how to tell the difference between which energy was mine and which energies were not, I was very uncomfortable with what I sensed. I had a lot of confusion and fear around it. But once I began to learn and understand all of this, it completely changed my life. So not only did I become more comfortable with my own field of energy, I became familiar with my guides. And now, of course, I help other people identify what's in their field, as well as how to do this work for themselves. Now, in my experience with guides, the first one that I met intentionally was in my very first Reiki class. And my teacher was also a shaman, and she led us through a shamanic journey to meet one of our spirit guides. So when I first started with Reiki, I was working with my guide to understand how I was working with energy. I would ask my guide for guidance to show me, to explain things to me. I wanted to understand. And then after that experience, I started connecting with other guides through meditation. And as time went on, and, of course, in all of this, there was the strengthening of my intuitive ability, I began working with my guides in so many different ways. And now I'm more aware of what is in our field at all times. And I can communicate with them now very clearly. But I want to tell you, when I started in all of this, I was very nervous about opening myself up to everything. It's a very common fear that people have about if I open myself up to working with my guides or seeing my guides, there's this fear of seeing anything else, like maybe there's certain energies that you don't want to see. But the truth is, there are all types of energies present in our field. It's just a matter of what you are actually able to perceive. And if you are generating fear around seeing or sensing energy, you may actually block your ability because you're afraid. But then you also end up attracting more of that fear energy into your space. So then when you are sensing anything, it's going to feel very uncomfortable because you are afraid. Now, we talk on the show a lot about what you attract in your space based on your energy, and this is what you feel, what you believe, what you are generating in your space. The same is true of your guides. They are energetic, and you will attract particular guides or guidance based on your energy and based on your intention. It's based on what you call into your space. Now, as far as other types of energies go that maybe they aren't necessarily your guides, I have questions about that too. People ask me about that all the time, but that's really like an entirely different show. But I will say that you have choice in who or what you associate and work with. Just like people in your life, you will attract in people and energies based on your field of consciousness, but you also have choice in who or what you spend time with. Now, one of the most important elements in all of this work, even just in life itself, is your own energy. If you work on strengthening your own energy and work on the type of energy you're generating, which again includes your beliefs, your stories, and becoming familiar with what you're really holding in your field of consciousness, you'll begin to take ownership of your space. It's like your house, right? You have a lock on the door, and most likely you choose to lock your door and you decide who you're going to open it for. The same is true of your field and the energies you allow in your space. Someone may knock on your door, you can look out the peephole, you see that they're there, but you don't have to invite them in. If you do, it's because you decided to. When it comes to your energy, you have this same type of control. But first you have to be aware of you, because in this sense, you are the lock and you are the key. Now, I wasn't going to talk about this, but I will share briefly why this is so important. Whether you are doing energy work or not, you are constantly exchanging energy with other people. And even if you are doing work on yourself, you may come into contact with other people who have a lot going on energetically in their field. And it may be stuff that you don't necessarily want in your field. And if you are sensitive to energy, this will be very apparent to you. You may feel drained or really off after having certain interactions. But the more aware you are of your own field of energy, the more work you have done to strengthen your own field of energy, the less susceptible you are to the effects of energies that are not yours or outside of you. So you will be aware of what you sense, but you don't have to take on the energy as your own. And this is so important, especially for people who are very empathic, because you do tend to be energetic sponges, which if you don't learn how to work with this ability, it can be very uncomfortable. It can seem like a curse. And to be quite honest, for me, initially, it was so annoying until I understood it. But once you learn how to manage it, it really does become a gift. I actually have several stories that I could share with you about working with guides. I mean, I've had some amazing experiences, but I'm going to share this one in particular because it relates to guides and the importance of working on your own field. And this happened about a year ago. So I have a friend who is a bartender, and she is constantly taking on energy that isn't hers. She is very empathic, but at the time of this event, she didn't know how to translate what she was sensing, and she was just starting to learn how to manage her own field of energy. I was working with her on this. So this one day she called me because she was feeling really drained and she wanted a Reiki section. She was thinking she just wanted to rejuvenate or balance her energy. And it wasn't like an official appointment. So she just came to my home, and my friend Ethel happened to be here too. Now, as soon as this friend walked in the door, I could sense that something was in her field. There was something energetically going on around her that wasn't hers. So I called in my guides intuitively. I didn't tell her what I was doing. I just, called in my guides. And then I looked over at my friend Ethel, who also does this work, and I could tell that she was sensing the same thing. So anyway, my friend sat down and she started telling us about her week. And the whole time she was talking, I was very aware of my own field of energy, because I was not going to allow whatever was in her space into my field of energy. So long story short, I went into another room to prepare to help her, and I was connecting with my guides, and they told me to go a little extra step in preparing for working in her field. And it was going to be something very quick. I was just going to do an energy alignment on her. But my guides were telling me to really take the time to ground and strengthen my field. So I did. Then, as soon as I began working on my friend, energy began releasing from her space. And this energy was not hers. And it was so strong that she felt it. And even my friend Ethel, who was in the other room, felt it too. Now, fortunately for me, I was very comfortable in the whole process because I've done a lot of work on myself, and I knew that my guides were supporting me and guiding me. So when the alignment was over, my friend, she felt much better. She felt much lighter, and she could tell that she was, back comfortable in her own space. But more importantly, she realized how important it is to maintain her own energy. And for me, I became aware of how powerful it can be to work directly with your guides. Now, I will say that I believe our guides are higher levels of our consciousness or higher vibrations of what we are, because I also believe that we are all one and we are all different aspects and different expressions of the divine. So while you can call them by name or by grouping, such as archangels or ascended masters, you can also just ask for help. But be specific in asking that it be in the highest and best for you, or in the highest and best for whomever you're working with. Now, if you are going to work with your guides, I would also point out that it's important not to become too dependent on them. Now, of course, they can guide us and teach us, but that's the point. To teach us how to become more aware and familiar with our own ability. And they can help us learn how to trust in our own ability by showing us and guiding us through what we're capable of doing ourselves. Now, of course, there are many people who are working very closely with their guides for various reasons, but I personally work with them to learn. And I also hold space for people, in sessions, inviting in my guides to create a space of higher vibration. And sometimes I even ask my guides to work on me energetically. Now, again, if you don't want to work with guides, you can also intend to work with specific energy, like the vibration of love or the vibration of joy. It can be anything. It's all energy. It's what you call into your space. It's up to you, and it will work for you either way. But be clear with your intention. Now, I will say that when I started in all of this, I had no intention of working with guides. I didn't know anything about them. And yes, I was very sensitive to energy. And I heard people talk about working with angels. And, I even had several teachers and other psychics tell me that I had a lot of Egyptian energy in my field and that I had Egyptian guides. But I thought it was all interesting. And, it was fascinating, really. But it didn't really matter until I became aware of my guides myself. And I started to understand how they were working with me and what I could learn from them. Now, another thing that comes up is people who have crossed over. That comes up a lot in the realm of guides, our loved ones. And like I said earlier, it's common for us to sense them in our field because their energy is familiar to us. And it's like you can just feel them. You think about them and you know that they are there. And even when you become more aware of how you sense and translate energy in general, you may sense those who have crossed over in other people's spaces. And this feeling of how you sense that energy, it's very similar to how you may sense or perceive the presence of your guides once you start, practicing. Now, as far as people who have crossed over, it does come up for me in readings sometimes, but I never intend to connect with them. It just happens. And they usually show up just so that, people know that they're still with them. And sometimes they do have messages. But if you are interested in working with those who have crossed over, I do recommend looking into learning mediumship. And just to clarify, if you plan to work with any type of energetic guidance, I also recommend working on your own energy as well. In all of this work, having an awareness of your own field of energy is very important. Now, if you do want to start becoming more familiar with your guides, you can begin by just having the intention of calling them into your space. And again, you can be specific about who you want to work with, or you can simply ask to connect with a guide that will help you with whatever your point of focus may be. And you can ask them to give you signs. And then you want to pay attention to what shows up in your field or what shows up in your life. And then, of course, one of the things that helped me was meditation. So you can also practice connecting with your guides in that way. And if you do it through meditation, it also gives you an opportunity to ask them their names, and you can ask them why they've shown up. But the key will be to trust whatever comes up for you. So for me personally, when I was learning and starting all of this, whenever I had a new guide come into my field, I would Google their name, because a lot of times it would be a name that I wasn't familiar with, or even if it was a name that was common, I was just curious to see what the name meant. And I also would look up the information they gave me, because sometimes they will give you, either information about them or about the work that you're doing, just anything. And it can be a lot of fun getting to know them. So if this is all new for you, pay attention to how you sense energy. If you ask to connect with a guide in meditation, notice if you sense a shift in energy, or if you hear anything, or if imagery comes up in your mind's eye, or if you see colors or sense anything at all. Pay attention and practice. Now, for some people it is very easy, but for some it does take practice. And you have the ability, you just have to learn how to connect and translate what it is that you sense. Now, one of the final tips I'll give you today is I know that a lot of people communicate with guides through their dreams. So if you do want to try this technique, you just want to set an intention before going to bed and ask your guide or your guides to show up in your dream state. And one of the things I want to point out, if you are doing it in meditation, allow yourself to relax. Completely relax into your body, relax on your breath, and ground. Be still. And then tune in and start asking them, inviting them into your space. But however you ask, they will come. Just keep in mind the type of energy you want to work with. You have choice. Remember, it's just like the people who show up in our physical reality. We play a part. Your energy and your intention plays a part. And then the more you work on understanding how you interpret what you sense, the more clarity you will gain around your guides and how you can work with them and the messages that are coming through. But this is your intuition and your sense of energy that you are strengthening in all of this work. So keep that in mind. This is about you strengthening and working with and understanding and developing your own ability. Now, since this is such a hot topic for so many people, my friend Ethel and we put together a free event for you, and the event will actually launch next week. And it's a 3-part series where we got together one day and we were talking about our own experiences and how we connected with our own intuitive ability. And we do share, just a lot of different information, but it gives you insight from two different perspectives, because Ethel and I, we did have very similar training, and we even had some of the same teachers, but we have very different ways of reading and perceiving energy. So again, the event will be free. And the funny thing is, when we actually got together to record the series for you, we were interrupted by an energy that came in very strongly. So if you connect to the series, if you listen to the series, you'll hear what happened. So in addition to that, there'll also be a special offer for those of you who want to go a little deeper. So we also created an online course that you can take at your own pace. And during the month of June, the course itself it's only $47. And that's because we want to make sure these tools are available to as many seekers as possible. And then as a bonus, at the end of the month, we are going to host a live Q&A event for anyone who has participated in the course. And it'll be a lot of fun. But you can get more information about that by signing up for my newsletter at yewchi.com, and that's YEWCHI.com. And the links to the event will be in my June newsletter, which will go out next week when the course launches. So that is all. And I hope that today's information was helpful for you if you are thinking about working with guides or if you're working with them already. But remember, at the end of the day, it's really about you and understanding yourself and strengthening your own energy and your own intuition. And as always, I thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a beautiful week, and remember to always journey in love.